welcome back to Beth's Book Fort, where it is my mission to read enough books to build a fort. As you can see, I've got a long way to go, so if you have any recommendations, I'm always looking for new recommendations. Drop it in the comment. Today we are doing another book review, so today we are reviewing Tripods, The White Mountains, and the Norby Chronicles by Isaac and Janet Asimov. Let's start with the Tripod series by John Christopher. This is the first book, The White Mountains. Honestly, it was everything I wanted it to be, so I really enjoyed it. I have two minor complaints I'll talk about in a second, but otherwise it was a good book. I would label it MG fiction, I think it is. The main character, Will, is 13, and when he's 14 is when he'll get capped. So he's just becoming a teenager, but just the themes in it and the levels of content and stuff, I would label it as an MG. And I haven't read a lot of MG science fiction, so that was one reason it really appealed to me. If you know about any MG science fiction, leave a recommendation, because I would like to read more. So the premise is humanity is ruled by these large tripods. They have 3 legs, right? Humanity's history has kind of gone forgotten. They've forgotten their history. No one really knows if they were sentient robots that humans built who kind of rebelled and took over, or if they came from another planet. And they don't really know if this is just an exoskeleton, maybe there's like an alien inside controlling it, or if they're robots from another planet. So, I kind of like that element of mystery and uncertainty, because one of the most interesting things about this book is that even though humanity is being ruled by these overlords, and they cap people at their 14th year so that they, curve. It's like an implant that goes on their head and helps to control their thoughts and curve their rebellious impulses, which sounds super invasive. But what's so interesting is that the robots, other than that, the robots really have nothing to do with everyday life. And so it's hard to almost tell that the people, humanity is being oppressed. And that's one of the more interesting factors because at one point, basically, we'll go into the story, this man comes along who is pretending to be a vagrant, and vagrants are people who've been capped, but the cap didn't really take, and they kind of lose their mind. There's something that goes wrong mentally. They kind of lose their mind, they wander around, and people are obligated to help them, but at the same time, they're kind of shunned from society. But one of the vagrants, his name is Ozymandias, and he's just pretending to be a vagrant. His cap isn't real. It was put on by humans just for the appearance. And he goes around from human settlement to human settlement, kind of looking for people who are questioning, and kids, because they haven't been capped yet, and have a chance to escape. He's looking for kids who might be open-minded or who are questioning, and when he finds them, he sends them on a journey to go find this free human society in the mountains. And it's a bit like Pilgrim's Progress in that, which I really liked. It's like Pilgrim's Progress, but with alien machine overlords. So he finds Will, and Will is starting to question because he's going to be capped, and because his best friend was just capped, and he noticed there was like something different there. He didn't really like that. And so he makes friends with Will and tells Will the truth about, that they're ruling humanity. This is not how it's always been. And he sends Will on this journey to go find the free human society. And Will ends up, 2 boys end up going along with him. One's his cousin, and then one they find on the way. And that's the 3 of them trying to make it to the White Mountains. And like the Pilgrim's Progress, they have some interesting obstacles along the way. And one of them is a major temptation where Will's kind of tempted to settle. And it's really interesting because even as the reader, knowing that, these robots have ruled society and taken humanity back to this stage of, kind of feudalism. We'll talk about that in a second. I kind of agreed with Will. Like, the robots don't seem to really interfere with human life. It doesn't seem like it. He's tempted to stay with these people he met because they have really good lives. And they're comfortable, and they have free will to a certain extent, and it doesn't seem like this great evil impacts them. And it was really convicting because then it made me think in my own life how often when something doesn't actually impact my life, even though if I know it's wrong, it's so easy to let it go and to just say, it's not so bad, it's not worth getting uncomfortable or fighting for. or to keep the fight, because his journey was pretty hard, and he was thinking maybe it's not worth it. Maybe I should just stay here and live out my life. So I found that really interesting. Obviously, he doesn't choose that because he realizes it is costing humans more than it appears, because they end up taking this girl away to their city. And he learns they take prisoners regularly to go serve them. And the way she responds to it, she's like so excited, like that, like they're her gods. Like she wants to kind of go worship them almost. And that freaks him out a bit, which rightly so. So he ends up continuing on his journey with his friends. I think I didn't realize how early this was written. It was written in the 60s, I'm pretty sure. So I think it did shape a lot of science fiction and dystopian. There was a lot of things that I was like, oh, but John Christopher does it right. There's a lot of dystopia out there that I don't really like because I don't think it's well thought through. But I think it was done pretty well. I did have a couple issues with the world building, because pretty much the idea is that humans have, and the tripods have put them back into a early kind of feudal society where they have villages. They don't have a lot of technology. Like his dad owns a watch, which is like a big phenomenon to them. And they don't understand. They've lost a lot of their science and stuff like that. And so they're kept at a more primitive level so they don't rebel, is the idea. And then we got about halfway through the book and it became clear that they had like regressed to a very specific time in human history. And it threw me because a lot of those elements were put in later in the book and not right at the beginning. The beginning's very vague about how the society functions. So that kind of threw me, but I was willing to accept it, even though it was kind of like, seemed to come in at the middle. And then the ending, I was kind of disappointed after this huge struggle, and they get to this point where the tripods, he takes out the tracker the tripods put in him, and the tripods are hunting them, and there's like dozens of them covering these hills and searching, and they're hiding under a rock in the water, and they're miserable. It's like really tense, and they've been on this long journey to try to get to the White Mountains. I was so looking forward to that moment when they would get to the mountains and meet the humans there that were free and kind of see how they lived. Like I wanted to experience that as the reader. And he does this thing with the ending that it was kind of frustrating. I still love the book. I thought it was fun. But he kind of just cuts off right before that moment. And then they say, and then we made it to the White Mountains and the humans there and everything changed. Like, it's pretty much just summed up like that. And you're like, what? Like, why can't we see this play out? We've been working towards this the whole... So I don't know how. It's funny because he talks at the beginning about how hard he worked with his editor on this and how writing children's books was much harder than he had thought. And he had to rewrite things. And I'm just like so surprised the editor didn't make him play that out because it's like the whole point of the book. But anyway, I guess book 2 is gonna play out with the human society and everything, but still, you've worked so hard. I wanted to see that moment through the boy's eyes of getting there. So they do rob you of that moment. It's still a great read. I enjoyed it. And the tension of, these alien robots hunting. There's like this wonderful, wonderful creep factor, because sometimes the tripods will just come and watch the humans, and people who are capped don't seem to like know they're there, but the people who are uncapped are very aware of them. There's this wonderful creepy moments like that. I enjoy that a lot because but it's done in a very tasteful way for younger readers. So I am hoping to continue with the series and see what else happens. So The Tripods, great science fiction read for younger readers. The other book we're talking about today is the Norby Chronicles by Janet and Isaac Asimov. And it is also, I would say, for younger science fiction readers. I really didn't know what to expect going into this. I've read Isaac Asimov before. It's very different from his other work. And I've been trying to think of how to describe. I did enjoy it as a read. It's difficult for me to form my thoughts coherently on this book because it's just very different from anything that I've read before. This little book is broken up into 2 kind of episodes, and I'm pretty sure there are sequels, like the Chronicles go on into other adventures. The first one is 2, and I definitely like the second one better. It really, both of them, they really jump you right into the action. They're very, very quick pace. Like, no scene is really played out to its full extent. Kind of reminded me of like a comic book So you have to kind of adjust, and there's a point quickly where you just have to let it happen and see and kind of follow along, because it gets ridiculous. There is kind of, you do have to suspend your disbelief. Sometimes there's a goofiness to it that feels much more immature. Especially in the first episode, I didn't really like Norby that much. He's kind of so he's supposed to be this unique robot with a personality which is different from all the others. And the boy finds him in this old shop, and he buys him to teach him a certain language, and realizes Norby is basically, he's not just, a teacher robot who repeats things over and over. He has a personality and has these unique talents. He has technology that's way beyond what he should have, and they realize that's because he's part alien, and that this old inventor found this alien ship and so he's a hybrid from alien parts, and this is the first contact they've had with aliens. Humans have had with aliens, so it's a unique, and it's an interesting premise. But Norby is kind of whiny and selfish and has attitude, and I usually enjoy that kind of a robot, like the kind of off-putting C-3PO from Star Wars, or Marvin, the depressed android in The Hitchhiker's Guide. But it just, maybe because I wasn't used to it already, in the first episode, it came off really as annoying and not as like that charming annoying. And I was like, why should I care about... And because some of the things I felt were a bit more goofy in the first episode, took me maybe a while to adjust. But at the same time, like, it's interesting. The main character, Jeff, has an older brother, Fargo, and he's like this kind of Han Solo character, but younger and not as much of a rogue, but he's got this charming kind of talk his way out of anything personality, which is fun. So basically they get into a bunch of hijinks. And like I said, the second episode was more interesting to me. In the second episode, you actually have kind of a foundation for things and who people are. And they find out Norby can travel through hyperspace and also through time. And these are both technologies that humans have not mastered. And so he ends up taking Jeff to the alien planet, Jeff and Fargo, and they have to deal with these aliens. And they're not like realistic aliens. They're kind of more, it's almost like fantasy sci-fi in that aspect of it. They're like dragon aliens, which adds a kind of fun dimension to it. And they get into a whole bunch of scrapes through that. So it's I would say it's very different from his adult work, a different style. And maybe now that I'm used to it, I'll enjoy it a bit more. But if you want like retro kind of comic book style, just with blasters and aliens and technology and robots, it definitely has all of that. And it does kind of spark your imagination, because it's different than a lot of modern science fiction and how they would handle things. So if I see another book in the series, I'll probably pick it up and read it for fun. But I enjoyed it, but it threw me for a loop on a few things, and it's not my absolute favorite of his work or of sci-fi. But I do appreciate kind of the different take on science fiction that it had, and how it thought outside the box and just had fun with some concepts. So if you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. Go ahead and leave your thoughts if you've read either of those books, or if it had sparked any thoughts. I love to hear comments from you guys. And hit subscribe. I really appreciate your subscriptions. Once I get to 100 subscriptions, I can have a customized URL, which makes it easier for people to find me. So I really appreciate that. And if you liked it, share it with your friends. But otherwise, stick around. We're going to be doing... The next video review I do is going to be on some YA fantasy. The Book of 1,000 Days by Shannon Hale and The Scorpio Races by Maggie Steph-Fodders. So if you want to hear my thoughts on those books, then definitely subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Thanks guys for tuning in, and I will see you soon.